All right, so we are gonna try to forget about the video recorder, but just for the sake of anybody who might watch it at some point, this is a pre-service lesson study, and we are gonna be focusing on math, and this is our first planning session. We already decided we were gonna focus on math because it is an area where you all haven't had much opportunity to teach, and we know it is an important subject area. So, I have this little planning guide for us to walk ourselves through as we begin thinking about the lesson. So we can make notes on this, and hopefully it'll help us figure out exactly what we need to do. So, first question is, what curriculum resources do we have for teaching now? What are you aware of that your teachers use, or that you've gotten from classes you've taken or anything you've done? What resources do you have for teaching now?
Mentor has the CGI book and the number talk book that she uses quite often, and she often talks with Miss Grady prior to lessons. Yeah.
Have you all looked through those books to see what they're like? Tell me about the CGI book. Does it have problems in it?
Yes. And so I've looked more at the number talk one, just because I've been holding some of the intervention groups. And so it has lots of problems how to pose them to students and what kind of support or not to get them, just to let them guide their own thinking.
So what's the difference between the CGI book and the number talk book?
I believe, I haven't looked much at the CGI book, but I believe it's more about the process of CGI and how to teach using CGI. And the number talk book is actually, here are the problems you're supposed to pose during number talks that will allow for different kinds of strategies to be used and to highlight different things. I believe it's limited experience there.
Has anybody else taken a look at those resources? Not
I think that my mentor usually, they come up with their problems collaboratively.
Yeah.
So they base them off of the history content a lot that we're doing, and just kind of use the content that we're talking about and then put in numbers that are appropriate for the students to use. So
Yeah.
I think one from last week was it was something along the lines of 87 soldiers from the south, and then 900 soldiers from the north. How many soldiers were there all together? So then they had to add them together, and then it was a two-part problem, but something like that. So I think they usually don't use them from the book. I think they usually come up with them on their own.
Yeah, but maybe the book has been a resource, or could be a resource for us
Yeah.
in at least getting the structure of
Exactly.
the problem down. So maybe when we meet next Tuesday, if you could bring the books with you and maybe have a chance to look through between now and then, so you get a sense of what's in there. So you've used like social studies content for more of an integrated.
Yeah.
What other things have you seen with the problems?
Mine are usually based on student interest, like you had this much dollars, you spent this much money on candy, how much money do you have left? So, and then the numbers, she is very strategic in the way that she chooses them. Sometimes she wants students to break apart a 10 and divide it into ones, and she's just very specific about the numbers that she chooses for the
Yeah.
students.
So when I was talking about this with your mentors last week, I said that I would have you work with them to figure out the problem.
Okay.
Because there's no way, I don't know your kids, you don't know them well enough, or the content well enough to figure that out. So collaboratively, you can talk, or like if your team already does the problems together with the grade level team, then you can just use you're the one teaching, then you can just use that. But I think we want everybody, even if you're not the one teaching, come with a problem, because you'll be writing your own lesson, but it'll be, the structure of it will be flexible enough that you can use your problem, but the ones we're gonna see taught would be Carson's and Caroline's, right? All right, any other things you've noticed about the problems that they pose?
Mine are similar to Caroline's, like our teen ones are questions to they're related to the content itself or stuff.
Okay. That's nice that there's that, that it's integrated curriculum in a way.
Yeah, I know it's a good way to have a quick, like 5-minute discussion when she introduces the problem, because then it's just a quick way to bring in another content area.
Yeah. And of course, I love the idea of building on students' interests and their
Yeah.
background knowledge.
Mhm.
So those are both really good ways that you can make it meaningful.
Right.
And hopefully, student interest is also the same thing for the curriculum, because hopefully they're interested in the curriculum, so you're killing two birds with one stone with that. What about in yours, are the problems
Mostly guided by student interest or real world things that they could encounter. We've been working a lot with fractions. And so what I've seen a lot of brownies and pizzas and waffles being divided among kids. Just a lot of, the kids love food, so there's a lot of food problems, but
Okay.
because it lends itself very well to fractions.
Yeah, for
But-
sure. Okay, so you know kind of what types of problems, you know a couple of resources. Have you seen any online resources that are good for math?
The kindergarten team bought like a unit this year, and they've been doing whatever they like bought that way. They've been integrating it, so we'll do like CGI one day, and then to like scaffold their skills that they're doing in CGI, they'll do like a game from what they got on the internet. So they don't do CGI every day, but it like scaffolds.
Nice. So you might consider that for either a review or an introduction of some skill. That sounds good. Do you know what it's called?
I do.
That'd be something, check
Yeah.
it out, make sure you have access to it if
Right.
it's something that you feel like would be useful. Okay. So I think we already kind of covered that second question, what other resources are available? And I put a little note here, consider context, culture, and students' interests and needs, and you already mentioned that kind of. I have this piece of paper that I try to put out whenever I'm doing a lesson study that says that. Just as a reminder, consider context, culture, and students' interests and needs, because I think it's good for us to keep that at the forefront of our brains throughout the whole planning process. We ought to be thinking about, what do kids already know about this from real life, and why does it matter, and how can we connect with experiences and needs that the kids have. Okay, the next question is, I guess I should ask first, like, as you think about context, culture, students' interests and needs, how has the math that they've been doing connected with that? And you already mentioned, like, we make the word problem about that, but how does the math itself connect with students' background knowledge?
I think looking at socioeconomic status with some of my kids, there are several that I can tell are very used to, there's a limited number of resources, how do we split them evenly so it's fair? Just in the fraction lessons we've been doing recently. So that is something that it connects them. They know how to split something evenly.
Yeah.
They know how it needs to be fair because
Yeah.
I want my fair share.
Right.
So.
I'm so glad that you see that as an asset. Thank you for recognizing that. So many times we see students who live in poverty from a deficit perspective, so I appreciate you recognizing that, hey, this is something that they have experience with that's going to help them, that's going to be a positive thing in their instruction, and you've already seen evidence of that. That's cool. As you think about students' background knowledge, any thoughts about math and how you might make connections to real life with them?
It's hard to think about it in like the current like subtraction kind of problems that they're doing, because I don't feel like a lot of them even have a huge grasp of what these big numbers in subtracting those amounts can be related to. I mean, I did the partitioning lesson, which was easy to connect, but that's similar to the fractions lesson. You're talking about splitting equally, and that's something they can understand and connect to.
Yeah.
But I actually kind of thought about this, that it's great that the social studies content is in there, but I'm not sure how much it actually connects to the students' background knowledge and their actual culture. And, I mean, same with the money kind of problems. I mean, they don't know what it's like to spend $300 and spend $200 more dollars, things like that. So I think it's hard. I don't know how I would connect those sorts of just generic subtraction and addition problems to their actual life.
Especially when it's getting into in second grade with those hundreds, making up to the thousands. And those are big numbers, and I don't know that they have a lot of kids just in general have much experience with that much of something, just because that becomes more abstract.
Yeah, this is, in 6th grade, I did a lot of, my tutorials, I did a lot of those stereo-act tasks. Do y'all remember those? I love those. And I feel like it gives the kids a good visual. And I remember there was one about like jelly beans. And it was like they filled up this big jar of jelly beans and they had to guess how many was in it. And then you actually did the math to try to figure out how many was in it. So maybe that'd be a good way to kind of bring them in. And I like doing those with the 6th graders. And I think that one was for a lower grade level. So I could look into that. But those are good.
I don't think either of your teachers have like gem jars or, yeah, because Miss Nichols and Miss Siegel, I think, have gem jars, which they kind of keep track of if the group does something really well, they'll get a gem in the jar. And so then when the gem jar gets full, and I was thinking about the jelly bean thing, like they could estimate how many gems in the jar, but I mean, that's not the math problem content you're working on. I was just trying to think of something with big numbers, and that would be a big number.
Or even the taking away. They did a problem the other day with taking away, and where you had to borrow. And I could see there was a lot of gaps in understanding. Like they understand how to do the strategies to make it work, and then you add the certain amounts back to the other side. And it was great, and most of them could do it, but I'm not sure if they had the concepts of what was actually going on.
Yeah. And was that with big numbers too, or?
That was with hundreds, yeah. So they would take away the 100, and then, but it was problems where it would be 725 minus 397. So then they had to take away from the tens place. And most of them could do it, but that's kind of hard to connect to their actual life.
Yeah. The only connection I'm making right now, which would probably not be a good idea, is money. If you take away the decimal point, like $7 is 700.
Right.
But yeah, but nobody really thinks about math in that, or money in that way, so it's probably not a good idea. Okay, so are you also working with larger numbers, or you're working with fractions?
Fractions has
also?
been the big focus, just because Ms. Weaver was starting this grade earlier and found that they need more growth in order to be ready for 4th grade with fractions. But when we do just more typical problems, it is with those large numbers. It's getting kids to that. Even in 3rd grade, it's almost, I think it's 100,000s.
Wow.
Is what they're at too.
And are they doing CGI type problems with that? So the other thing that's coming to my mind is, and I'm just throwing out ideas, but like for those when you mention those big numbers, I'm thinking about a football stadium and how many attendees there are, how many, what do we call fans? How many fans there are at it's baseball season now, I guess, so at a baseball game. Like how many fans at the Naturals baseball game?
Kids are going on a field trip to a baseball
So,
game.
yeah, so that might be a way to connect, like the stadium, how many does it hold? And, I'm just tossing out ideas. So that's something for you to be thinking about between now and next Tuesday maybe, is how are you gonna connect it with their own context, culture, interest, and needs. Something to have in mind. Okay, so what does the literature have to say about teaching math concepts? I have this article that is kind of CGI-ish in format that I thought might be helpful for us. So we're going to jigsaw it because it's kind of a long article. It's not as long as it looks because I forgot to double-side copy. So there's 5 different sections, and we're each going to take a section and read over it and report on it. But you can all read the introduction, which you can see is that first page, and then on the second page, all the way through where it says the 5 practice model, read about the 5 practices, and then after it says figure 2 to ground the discussion, draw a line there, because that's where we're gonna start jigsawing. Okay, so I'll do anticipating, and you can do monitoring. These are the 5 practices for teaching in kind of a CGI way. And so first you have to anticipate how students are going to respond, and then you monitor, and then selecting is for you, Carson, and that's about selecting the problems that you're gonna share. And then sequencing is for you, Caroline, so that's about deciding which one you're gonna share first, which one you're gonna share second. And then connecting, and then we'll all read the little conclusion.